So we also have the Walvis Bandura Lubumbashi Development Corridor consists of Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and the DRC markets, and the Trans-Kunene Corridor basically linking Namibia to Angola, the Trans-Oranje Corridor linking Namibia, especially the port of Lutherits, to the Northern Cape of South Africa. We are headquartered in Windhoek. We are in existence for the last 20 years now. We opened our first regional office in Lusaka, Zambia in 2005. So we have been in existence in Lusaka, in Zambia for the last 15 years. We have an office in Joburg. We have an office in the DRC in Lubumbashi. We have got representation in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. And strategically, we are also working on setting up representation and office in Europe, more specifically Germany, at the port of Bremen, as well as also in Asia, more specifically with China. And the USA positioning is also on our cards. Basically, what you see there is the time to market to the various markets. I will not go into the details thereof, but our proposition here, or our value proposition, is that we are offering shorter transit times, as Master Tino Hanabeb has indicated. Basically, this is what you see now is prior to COVID. With COVID, with the advent of COVID, came a lot of some new challenges, because COVID now brought about some restrictions, especially at the border crossings, where cargo has been delayed, but there is significant improvement since the advent of COVID. We believe that we are a strategic location for international shipping lines, and we are the gateway to the west coast of Africa, and we are connecting the main economic centers in the world. Basically, in terms of Africa trade challenges, is that a third of the countries in Africa, I don't want to use the word landlocked, but they are sea-linked countries. There are long distances to international markets. There are cumbersome border procedures, especially the crossings, dependent on maritime countries for trade. There are higher transportation costs, especially if you have to reach these neighboring countries. And there are lower volumes of trade and higher average costs of trade. Basically, intra-Africa trade volumes are approximately 18 to 20%. So, which means that we are also doing very low trade, or we trade very low amongst ourselves as African countries. Yes, in terms of some of the consideration for corridor development, is that we are looking at efficient corridors. Efficient corridors extends beyond the provision of transportation infrastructure. And I think in my last slide, I would just also summarize in that regard. Non-tariff barriers restricts regional economic integration. One of the new non-tariff barriers that we came across recently is COVID-19, because now every aspect of our doing business has a component of COVID, where drivers that are moving across the borders, people that are moving, they have to show negative results, they have to go for testing, and sometimes the results are delayed. The optimization requires coordination of multiple stakeholders. The common objectives that we look at is we are moving from national focus to regional and continental. Merging the public-private sectors is crucial. and the level of flexibility. And our intention is also to move from intention to action. So basically, in terms of implementation, corridor management institutions are there to coordinate, create a joint networking environment and consensus among the corridor partners, um, uh, corridor monitoring, performance monitoring to ensure efficiency in terms of planning, mid to long-term planning. Corridor promotion, we do marketing and positive attraction to the corridors and the business community. We do trade and transport facilitation. We do advocacy. We are taking the lead in processing, proposing reforms and acting required actions that are required on the corridors. And we provide advisory services, assist with the member states on the implementation of corridor objectives, policies, and strategies. So corridor management institutions also advocate for the improved and efficient transportation of economic corridors through the promoting of inland facilities beyond seaports, identifying impediments to efficient movement of goods and products, facilitate dialogue among the corridor stakeholders to harmonize procedures and documents. We are also working very closely with national and regional authorities to focus on improvement of the infrastructures. We act as a facilitating body between public and the private sector, business development for the private sector as well. And there are some of the challenges to address for an effective corridor is to basically to bring about consensus among all the stakeholders. Sometimes you are dealing with different cultures and different ways of doing things. I can take an example. If you have to deal on the Walvis Bandola Lubumbashi corridor, you have basically three countries, Namibia, Zambia, and the DRC, with different cultures. So we have to massage these relationships and to make sure that we bring about consensus. And sometimes it takes very long because the stakeholders in one particular part of the region may do their things differently and negotiate also differently. Border transit times are also some of the challenges that we are facing. I can bring some of the examples like at Kasumbalesa, where the borders are quite congested normally, and sometimes the border transit times, some of the borders are also operating not on a 24-hour basis. But what we want is that the efficiency, in order to bring corridor efficiency, these border posts have to operate on a 24-hour basis because the volumes are increasing. Some of them, the border infrastructure and facilities were built when there were no trade volumes between the countries. So I can just give an example, like on the Namibian side, at Katima Mulilo border post, the border infrastructure was built, for example, for around about 16 people, to accommodate 16 people. Now you have got over approximately 61 people working at the border. So, so we need to also adjust to some of these expansions. The infrastructural development and the maintenance of the infrastructure are some of the challenges. Sometimes you move from one part of the corridor, but if you move into the next part of the corridor or in another country, you see there are some infrastructural challenges, like in terms of the road infrastructure that are perhaps aging or dilapidating, regulatory and policy issues as well. Rail versus road, Mr. Smith touched quite extensively on that part. increased logistics capacity, regional growth, cost reduction, and that is really a challenge on our corridors because not necessarily in Namibia or in SADC, but everywhere else, because you want to do this kind of business cost effectively. And also, one of the challenges that we have is also creating alternative trade routes. Some of the operators and the mines and the commodity owners are used to old ways of doing things. They are used to their traditional trade routes, and we have to do quite effective um, um, advocacy in order for them to change the way they've been doing business. And there are benefits to the customers um, from a market perspective, thus creating alternative trade routes and access to new markets, dedicate focus on safety, security, and reliability. Basically, when people are moving on the Namibian side of the corridors, even high value cargo is not necessarily escorted, and so there is quite a sense of reliability in that regard. And there's normally an ease of doing business. We also attract investments in new industries that can also be brought on the table and enhance regional and economic competitiveness. And basically, as Namibia would like to position itself as a logistics hub between the world and SADC, and the ports that Mr. Hanabe was talking about, those are basically the transshipment infrastructure. We also need to put up some storage and warehousing, the rail and road, and that also can support the intermodal transportation, efficient transport networks. And basically is that what we have along the corridor is, that's the picture of the ZAMBEZI bridge that was opened in 2014, no, 2004. Between Namibia and Zambia, there was no bridge, and it was also very difficult to transport or to move the cargo across the Zambezi River. That's the port, the new container terminal that is in operations now, bring new impetus to us in terms of competitiveness. We consider ourselves as the gateway to SADC as a mall, and we provide, most importantly, also wellness services along the corridors, facilitating and support the fight against HIV and AIDS. Now we are also involved with the provision of services in terms of COVID screening, as well as testing. We are working with the health authorities. We do workplace wellness programs where we do outreach to the workplaces. We also have mobile clinics along the corridors. We also provide mobile services along the corridors as well. So when the truck drivers along the corridors, they don't necessarily have to go to a fixed medical facility, but they can also get some of these services free of charge. I have only one slide about COVID-19 because it remains the elephant in the room, and we expect perhaps the second wave to come to this part of the world, where I believe that cargo cannot be moved virtually like what we are engaging in now. It must be moved physically. And we cannot stop the movement of goods, but we have to strike a balance between COVID-19 and the economy. Otherwise, COVID will kill the world economy, and there will be much more problems. So basically is that we, through our wellness services, we are making the health of the truck drivers a priority. And I think this is my last slide, the important aspects for corridor success is that it's not, we need to have, yes, good infrastructure, integrated systems, but also importantly, we need to develop skills in the transport and the logistics sector. We need to provide good experience services, and most importantly, there must be good experience for everyone using the corridors. I submit. Thank you.